What happens when the search box that we relied on for decades suddenly stops being the centre of our attention? Well, in this episode, I'm going to sit down with Aaron Goldman. He's the CMO of MediaOcean. And together we'll look at the future of advertising in a world where AI platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini and Perplexity are rapidly becoming the new go-to destinations for information, recommendations and even purchases. And he's someone that's been at the heart of digital advertising for more than 25 years and quite literally wrote the book on learning from Google. But today he's going to be bringing a fresh, sharp perspective on where we've been, what's changing, and what marketers need to be thinking about next. Whether that be AI native ad formats or creative automation, to the risks involved and rising importance of model context protocols. The conversation will be packed with insights into what's coming next for brands, agencies, and the platforms that we all use. But enough from me. Let's get Aaron onto the podcast now. So thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, happy to. I'm Aaron Goldman, Chief Marketing Officer for MediaOcean. We are a company that makes technology for the advertising industry. Our products are Prisma, Innovate, and Protected, and people use them to run ads on everything from television to TikTok. All told, we have over $200 billion US running through our platform, which is about 1/4 of all the advertising in the world. Personally, I've been in the sector for a little over 25 years, working with ad tech companies and ad agencies. About 15 years ago at this point, I wrote a book called Everything I Know About Marketing I Learned from Google. And I've, certainly learned a thing or two since then, but working closely with Google throughout my career, and in some cases competing with them, in some cases partnering with them. I kind of have a sort of a front row seat to the changes in how people use search engines and are now embracing AI, which I'm excited to talk about with you today.
Yeah, and I'm interested in your career here because in the last 25 years, you've seen so many big changes, and obviously everything's all about Google and that advertising model, but AI is shaking things up a little bit now. So let's start with that bigger picture and where we're heading, because OpenAI is almost hinting at monetizing its tools through advertising. So the question I've got to ask you, especially looking back at your career, what's your immediate reaction to that? Does it feel like a natural evolution of AI platforms or a risky departure from original intent and also everything that we've seen Google and everything that was built on? What's your first reaction to everything?
Well, it makes a ton of sense to me that advertising would come into the AI space. Apps like ChatGPT are becoming the place that people turn to for information and recommendations. Similarly, Google with Gemini has really embedded that into the search experience. If we think about the roots of search and how people used to use Google back in the day, Google, it didn't take long for Google to turn its search engine into the world's biggest advertising platform. And so I think OpenAI and really anybody playing in the AI space has that opportunity. Perplexity has been the first to start rolling out ads on their platform. And I think if done well, ads on these AI agents can be good for everyone. They can bring great deals to people who are looking for products to buy or places to go. And they can be embedded into the experience, so it doesn't feel like advertising. I just spent a week on holiday in Paris, and before we left, I asked ChatGPT to create an itinerary for me, and I meant, I fed it the information. We're a family, 3 teenagers, and it came back with incredible results. It had suggestions, each day, places to visit, the best times to go, directions for travel. And from there, I just had to click on the little links to visit the different websites, check the prices, and buy the tickets. But it could have just as easily included offers for all those various things right on the original results as ads. Could have had ads for flights or hotel deals or other things I would need because the system knew my plans. They knew pretty much everything about me from my history. And again, the same way that ads don't on Google and search engines, the ads don't really bother people as long as they're relevant and present good deals. So I think the same would go for apps like ChatGPT.
It's funny you should say that. My son was telling me a very similar story about when he was in Miami, and he did exactly the same thing. He went to Google first, nothing but sponsored results. It was going to take a long time. Went to ChatGPT, got the information he needed straight away with that itinerary, like you suggested. But I'm curious, what does this mean for Google, Facebook, and websites that are on the front page of Google, for example, when we're increasingly putting our attention to things like ChatGPT to get that information that we're seeking?
Well, I think Google and Facebook or Meta more broadly have the same opportunity, frankly, to embed it, and they are, embedding AI results into the way that people use their apps and their platforms. Google with Gemini, Meta with Llama, they have their own large language models. They're creating their own experiences. Google has the advantage of already having a dominant market share in search, so they're able to blend some of that right into the search experience. You probably see that yourself as you put in a keyword and start to see some of the AI results at the top of the screen, and then you scroll down for what used to be called just the regular search results. And these are two companies that are the giants in advertising. Amazon probably being number 3 in terms of where most of the ad spend globally is going. And so the model that they know is for people to subsidize the content through the ads. There are some subscription features that they have, to be sure, but they've built multi hundreds of billions of dollars of business on the backs of advertising. So it would stand to hold that would be the approach they would take as they incorporate AI into their platforms today, and that would hold that would be the model that folks like OpenAI could follow. Today, it's a subscription-only service, but inevitably, advertising comes to these platforms. I mean, just look at Netflix, who for the longest time said, "Well, we won't do advertising. We'll never do advertising." And sure enough, now there's an ad-supported version.
Yeah, and I must admit, I do use Google and Facebook and the likes much, much less now. It is either ChatGPT or maybe even Perplexity. But talking about OpenAI, they have access to unprecedented volume of intent-rich data from the user interaction. So how do you see this changing from the traditional dynamics of ad targeting and measurement? Do you see any big changes here?
Well, yeah, I do think OpenAI has a great advantage. The conventional wisdom with advertising is that you want to be as close to the point of purchase as possible, or the point of decision. Where the consumer makes up their mind. When I was growing up, it was the supermarket shelf, right? And you see the in-store ads that try to persuade you which breakfast cereal to buy. But then with the rise of the internet and then search, Google became the place where this happened, and they actually coined a name for it. They called it the zero moment of truth. The ZMOT was the acronym, which was meant to show that they had replaced the original moment of truth that happened in stores when people decided what they were going to buy. And then more recently, you see that you've seen the retailers kind of launch their own ad networks. So we talked, Amazon's the largest globally, but really every retailer these days has their own online ad platform. So you can see ads as you're browsing. You can see ads all the way up through the shopping cart. And that's based on what you've previously purchased or what you're currently browsing. And so I guess, OpenAI has the chance to become the, I don't know what we'll call it, the -1 moment of truth, something less than zero. People share their preferences with ChatGPT. You have to in order to get the best outputs from it. So they can take everything the model has learned about you and use it to tailor the ads perfectly to what you're interested in or what you're looking for.
And assuming ChatGPT inevitably eventually becomes that ad-supported product, what kind of formats do you think would make most sense within that interface, especially given the needs for ads to feel helpful rather than intrusive?
Yeah, so this is a really important one. If you recall, when Google first launched ads, it was just the little blue links that looked like all the other native search results. And the reason they worked is not only because they were relevant based on what you were looking for, but they weren't very annoying. They weren't intrusive. Remember, this was at a time when ads on the internet were popping up over the browser or moving around the screen. And so just over time, though. And you mentioned this in your example, even just seeing ads at the top of search results and needing to scroll down a bit has become cumbersome for us and has created some friction. So I think OpenAI has an opportunity to change the game again. If we think about potentially embedding the ads into the results themselves. So when you give ChatGPT a prompt and you get the results, if you look closely, you'll see little icons or almost footnotes, right, where it shows you the sources for where it drew the information. So that could very easily be little icons for advertisers or brands or retailers where you can get a product or service related to your prompt. Or even taking it one step further, you could just have ChatGPT interact with an agent from the advertiser and complete the transaction for you. So, right now, if you think about how, when you get something back from ChatGPT, it usually kind of prompts you to give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you like the answer. Why not? Why couldn't you have a little buy button, right next to it? And it could use your saved information, shipping address. The whole thing could be done in seconds. And so that'd be a great experience for the consumer, but also the advertiser, because they can then reach people at these key moments of truth and then close the loop to measure to complete the transaction and ultimately measure the return on investment from their advertising.
And I'm curious, do you see OpenAI's potential ad business as a direct competitor to traditional search engines and platforms like Google and Meta, or are we actually talking about an entirely new category of conversational commerce here?
Well, yeah, it's an institution. I guess I'd call it a little of both. AI ads is definitely a new category, and it'll create a new stream of advertising spend and revenue. But I do think it'll cannibalize some pieces of what we know as like traditional search. We're already starting to see AIO or AI optimization take over for SEO or search engine optimization. I'm advising a company called Brandlight that built a platform for AIO, or actually GEO is another acronym that's picking up speed. That's generative engine optimization. And they have so Brandlight has this tool you can log into, and you can see how your brand appears in the AI results on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, the others, and then they'll give you suggestions on what you can do to improve your standing. Now, this isn't paid advertising. This is just based on content and making sure your brand is visible. But we're already starting to see teams of people that were dedicated to doing this work for search engines now shifting their focus to doing it for AI agents. And we're seeing a whole new class of technology being built to address this opportunity. Specific to advertising, I do think, and I've gone on record predicting that this will be the last decade of growth for paid search. This is a category that will do $150 billion US in advertising spend this year. Again, the lion's share of that going to Google. And it's been growing double digits every year for, the past 15, 20 years. And to be clear, I'm not saying it's going away, but I am saying it's going to stop growing. And that growth is going to go into advertising, AI advertising to be specific. Now, that's not necessarily bad news for Google, right? Because they have Gemini, and it's one of the largest AI agents. So in their case, they'll just kind of be moving the spend from one bucket to another. But you can also see why others like Microsoft and other online they're competing so heavily in the AI space, because this new category is coming up and it's a massive opportunity.
And with MediaOcean being right in the heart of omni-channel advertising, how do you see the rise of AI native ad environments maybe forcing brands and agencies to rethink their media planning and creative workflows in the future? Or is it in the future, or are you seeing changes already?
Yeah, no, we're seeing it already today. AI has become part of everyone's day-to-day job in advertising. And at MediaOcean, we've built it into every step of the workflow. So when you're deciding what are the best audiences to try and reach, or choosing the media placements to buy, or how much you should pay for each ad, we have AI models that can assist and make sure you get the optimal output. And then when you're creating the ad itself, we have AI to help generate images and text, and you can kind of do that from scratch just through some prompts, or you can upload your approved assets and let our system kind of create different versions for you. So you can test, thousands of different variations in your ad. Say, you want to try a blue shirt and a red shirt and a green shirt, and then pair that with different offers. Maybe it's 50% off or buy one, get one free shipping. And so then you can put all those ads in market, and the AI can also help with the reporting and the insights. So we use the AI to automatically tag each element of the ad, and it can tell you, okay, is the blue shirt working better with the green background and the 50% off copy? And you can also use conversational prompts to interrogate the data. Ask questions like, which of my ads are working best? If I have another 20,000 to spend, where should I put it? Those kinds of things. So it's really a virtuous cycle where the AI is kind of helping in every step. And, to be sure, you still need humans to manage the process and keep the guardrails on. And so all this AI really helps the people focus more, the marketers, on the aspects of the strategy, the business strategy, while the tech kind of handles the rote manual stuff.
And I was also talking to a guest from Coinbase a few days ago, and he was talking about the rise of agentic AI and converging with blockchain, how that could pave the way so we all have our own bots that we use with ChatGPT and just say, go and book that trip for me, etc. So with ChatGPT possibly becoming almost a transactional interface where whether it is ourselves, whether it is a bot, where it handles search, purchases, and even bookings, what would you say are the biggest opportunities and maybe even risks for advertisers that are trying to meet users at these decision points?
Yeah, so when it comes to kind of letting the agents do the work, and I do think that example you shared is something we're going to see more of. A lot of that hinges on the acronym's MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, and that's something that advertisers today really need to embrace. I'd call it the biggest opportunity is to embrace it. The biggest risk is to ignore it or not start testing and learning with it. And ultimately, what the MCP does, it's how businesses or really any platform communicates with the AI models and provides context, hence the name, for the LLMs to kind of understand what to do and how to use their information, their assets, et cetera. Now, without advertisers or businesses kind of taking ownership there, another risk is that you get disintermediated, and folks like, it could be OpenAI, it could be Google, Microsoft, Meta. If you're to just sort of turn over your assets directly and let them piece it together and decide where to surface it or how to show it, you'll not only lose control, but not get the optimal results, but you won't know what's working so that you can, learn and improve over time. And so it's just like advertising today. You still need kind of a neutral system that sits on top of the platforms to manage the budgets and make sure you're getting the best results and that the results are for your business, not what makes them the most money. So, if there's a system that where, ChatGPT has ads embedded into the answers it spits out, you'll still need to make sure that, the payments and such are passing through that kind of neutral third party to verify the delivery. And there's also an element of brand safety that comes into play where, you want to make sure your ads aren't being shown, with objectionable content. And so having a system that can kind of train the model and add a layer of accountability on top becomes important. Again, similar to what you have in online advertising today, where there are, third-party ad servers, verification solutions that kind of make sure that the ads are running where they're supposed to, that they're being viewed by actual humans. That's the part of our business with Innovid and Protected. Innovid is the ad server that sits on top of the media platforms and triggers the ads to appear and which version of the ad. And then Protected can tell if it's a safe environment with a real person on the other end of the screen. And then we have Prisma, which kind of plays that neutral role for media buying and billing by connecting, the thousands of different websites or apps, TV channels, radio, streaming, out of home. And, we can de-risk the process for advertising agencies by providing sort of a system of record. And then you can plug in your own AI or use what we've built to apply it into the ad process.
And if we look beyond the technical aspects for a moment, when I was doing a little research on you, I came across a great post on your LinkedIn that highlighted how there's also a broader social tension out there. And one of the lines that stuck with me was, empathy is declining, creativity is no longer being taught, and yet the future belongs to those who can think critically and connect ideas. So how do you think leaders should tackle a problem like this?
It reminds me a lot of the conversation that everyone was having when social media started up. At first it was just sharing pictures and text updates, keeping up with your friends and family. And then at some point it became like a full blown media channel for video and news and discourse. I'm using finger quotes. It's maybe putting it politely, using the word discourse there. It's usually just people yelling at each other, but the algorithms control so much of what you see and who sees what you have to say. And so we're in these like echo chambers, and that's where it's tough. It gets tough to have that empathy when you're being fed only stuff from people that, either totally agree with you or absolutely hate you. Um, and the algos are they're optimized for engagement, of course. So there's incentive for them to kind of present it that way. And so when we look at AI, the concern is, what metrics will they use to keep you engaged? If it can do all the kind of thinking for you and become almost a thought partner, where you ask it what to eat or where to go or what to buy, the hope is that the answers remain based on what's best for you and not what's best to kind of keep you coming back, so that they can make more money off you or even worse, being controlled by some, oppressive regime that wants to, program you what to think. And so this is where the creativity comes in, right? And so you have to know what to ask, what information to share, what prompt to use. And if you're just sort of like passive and blindly trusts the system, then, it can just become kind of another cog in the machine, getting the same inputs. And it's like the example is the calculator, the computer, right? Like just having access to it is not the advantage. It's how you use it. And so with AI, businesses, leaders need to be looking for talent or training their current teams to understand which parts can just be put on autopilot and trust the system. There's a lot of mundane work that can be done more efficiently. Again, thinking back to like the calculator and what parts of math you need to know and which parts you can just punch in. And then what are the unlocks that can kind of create net new ideas, products, practices? They talk about how it won't be long before there's a $1 billion company, with just one person using AI. It's that critical thinking, that questioning, the interrogating the data, the challenging the art of possible. That's the future. The AI is not going to replace that anytime soon.
100% with you. And finally, if we zoom out for a moment, do you think this shift that we're seeing will accelerate AI adoption in advertising overall, or is there a potential for a tech clash or backlash over privacy, manipulation, trust erosion? Will that hold some marketers back, or is the gold too shiny to resist?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be net positive. The faster companies embrace AI, apply it to their advertising, the more time the models will have to learn and calibrate and ultimately spit out, better ads, get better results. It's like with any new technology, you have to get in there, test and learn. And the advertisers that do this now they'll reap the rewards in the long term.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, sharing your invaluable insights around the world of AI, marketing, and everything in between. But before I let you go, I want you to leave everyone listening with one final gift, and that is a song that means something to you, inspires you, or just that you'd recommend that we can add to our Spotify playlist. But what would it be and why?
Yeah, we were talking about the algos, and this is one that might throw off the Spotify algorithm when you add it to the playlist. But it comes to mind. Actually, this was that Paris trip I mentioned that ChatGPT helped me plan. One of the things that I didn't realize was happening that I have to thank ChatGPT for was telling me that Beyonce was actually in town on her tour one of the nights we were there. So we went to the show. It was great, and he brought out Miley Cyrus as a special guest for a track that they did together on the Cowboy Carter album, and it's called "Two Most Wanted." And it was definitely a highlight. That the lyric goes something like, and pardon my butchering the song here, but it's like, "I'll be your shotgun rider till the day I die." And I just kind of I love that lyric. I think when I think about my role as like a CMO, I'm like, riding shotgun to the CEO, or whether it's, my wife and I, or, I suppose we could apply it to AI too. It won't be long before they're our closest companions. So our shotgun riders. So there's one for you. And I hope it doesn't send Spotify in a spiral when you add it to the playlist.
No, what a great choice. And also a great story behind it, a great story of serendipity. And the fact that you brought it home by singing it, that makes it even more powerful. So that is going straight on the Spotify playlist. And for any business leaders listening, marketers, or people just intrigued by everything they heard today, maybe they want to carry that conversation on, where can they find out more information about all things MediaOcean?
So yeah, we're on all the socials at Team MediaOcean. Our website is MediaOcean.com. I'm very accessible on LinkedIn at Aaron Goldman. My LinkedIn's public. I publish a newsletter that anyone can subscribe to. And I'm also on YouTube, actually not business related. But if anybody is into jam bands or trick shots, I've got a YouTube channel called Jude Perfect that you can check out. So in fact, one of my most recent trick shots was incorporating the cowboy hat that I brought home from the Beyonce concert. So check it out.
Ah, love it. Well, if you could do me a favor, either yourself or your PR team, if you can send me a link to that video, I will attach it to the show notes so people can see that trick shot on the blog post that will accompany this episode. And I just love chatting with you today about what AI-powered search engines incorporating ads, what it could mean for advertisers, including whether OpenAI will introduce ads, how that could reshape the industry, drive broader adoption. But if that wasn't enough, we've got Beyonce, Miley Cyrus, and trick shots. Man, we had it all today. But thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Neil.
So, are we heading into a future where ads don't just interrupt, but actually assist? And will advertisers seize the chance to shape this AI native era? Or will they be left playing catch-up as others own that moment of truth? And from Beyonce cameos in Paris to the promise and pressure of AI-infused media planning, I think Aaron reminded us today that creativity, context and critical thinking, these are the things that will matter more than ever. But what do you think? Are you excited by the potential of embedded, intent-driven AI advertising? Or are you wary of the privacy and trust trade-offs that it might introduce? Let me know your thoughts. Join the conversation. You've heard from me. You've heard from my guest, Aaron, today. Over to you. None of us have the answers, but I think together we can get pretty close. So let me know your thoughts. Email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, X, Instagram. Just at Neil C. Hughes. But it's time for me to get out of here now. I'll be back again before you know it with another episode. But thank you for listening, and I will speak with you all very soon. Bye for now.